Ready Player One is directed by Steven Spielberg and is based off the book of the same name, which I haven't read myself, but I've heard great things about it, and I've also heard that that book is very centric around Steven Spielberg pop culture. But anyway, we have the movie, and it focuses on this virtual world called the Oasis. The year is 2045, and everything's kind of gone to shit. Everyone prefers to stay in the Oasis rather than live in the outside world because the outside world looks like a dump. So the creator of the Oasis, James Halliday, played by Mark Rylance, has hidden 3 keys and an Easter egg inside the Oasis. So whoever finds the egg gets a huge, ridiculous amount of money and complete total control of the Oasis. And as you can imagine, everybody in the Oasis is on the hunt for the egg, particularly this kid Wade Watts who goes by Parzival in the Oasis, and this corporation who's bent on finding the egg for themselves so they can control the entire world. So like I said before, I've never read this book, but I have heard really great things about it, and people were really excited for this movie. I was a little skeptical watching all the trailers because it just looked like another formulaic YA novel, but in a virtual world, and you have one of the most critically acclaimed directors working on it. And plus, I don't think Spielberg's genre films have been particularly great, at least since the first Jurassic Park. I do like his more serious movies like Bridge of Spies and even The Post, despite the way that movie ends. And even though I have liked a couple of his more recent genre films like The Adventures of Tintin, and I remember liking Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when it came out. I'm going to be reviewing all the Indiana Jones movies once I'm done with Godzilla, so we'll see how my opinion on that movie holds up. But none of them have been on par with Jurassic Park at all. So this one, while, again, not on par with Jurassic Park, it might be his best genre film since Jurassic Park. This is the first time in a long time where Spielberg has done a movie that's not more adult, that's not geared towards the Academy Awards, that really feels like a Spielberg film. Even though this is based off a book, there's just this sense of wonder whenever you're in the Oasis. There's so many little Easter eggs and pop cultural characters in there that people are going to be freezing this frame by frame when they get it on digital or Blu-ray. And it's just overall a lot of fun. It's a visually stunning movie. I know a lot of people are going to look at this movie and go, wow, the CG looks terrible. This all looks like one giant video game. Yeah, it is a video game. The Oasis is pretty much a giant virtual reality game, so you can't really fault the CG for looking the way it does. It's just like with Tron. It all looks like a video game because it isn't a video game. It's not interacting with real-world stuff. And in terms of this actually being a young adult movie, it does follow the same ideas that something like The Hunger Games have followed, or Maze Runner, but it's pretty much like if you mixed a young adult novel with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, because it's just so downright nerdy at points. And the characters are just a little more enjoyable and likable than in something like Hunger Games. I know the situations in Hunger Games are super dire, but they got to a point where it could be downright depressing, and you just want to go, somebody, lighten up. And because the Oasis is pretty much an escapism for a lot of people, it allows everyone to lighten up and crack a smile at points because they're out of reality. So I actually do like a lot of the characters in this movie. They all have, well, most of them have good personalities, they're charming. The one that really sticks out to me, though, is Olivia Cooke as Artemis, I think that's her name. Olivia Cooke's performance is just so natural, and the character is just so full of energy. She's reliant. To be honest, I felt like she should have been the main focus of the movie rather than Wade Watts, because both of them come from the same background. They have sort of the same backstory. Olivia Cooke, throughout this whole movie, has a little more personality and just a little more spunk than Tye Sheridan does, who looks like he's always in a bad mood and he's trying to hold in a fart throughout this entire movie. I didn't dislike his character, but I felt this was very much a Charlie Hunnam scenario with Pacific Rim. I'm not going to say he's downright bad in this movie like Charlie Hunnam in Pacific Rim, but it's very much that situation of we have our main character who's not the most interesting, but we have all these other side characters that steal the show at points. And then you have Ben Mendelsohn as the film's villain, and he fulfills his duty as a villain. He's a corporate asshole. He doesn't understand pop culture. He just wants to get control of the Oasis because, you know, giant corporations. And I do like how the movie has little elements where it touches upon online personalities, how they can be different from real world personalities, and if you spend way too much time within the internet, you kind of lose sense of the real world. I do like a lot of the subtle stuff that this movie touches upon, and I ultimately really like this movie, as I mentioned beforehand. I had some issues, though. When the movie starts out, in the first maybe 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, I actually thought it was kind of terrible, because it's nothing but exposition from Wade Watts about what the Oasis is, how Earth got to the point where it's at right now. I just really wasn't digging it. And I do understand that you have to introduce us to this world because we want to know all the kinks and how it works, but you could do that with visual storytelling. Because when you watch Star Wars or Mad Max Fury Road, we're introduced to the world through visual storytelling. We don't have somebody telling us what's going on. And in situations where we're being introduced into a world via exposition, the best example I could think of right off the bat is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, where Hagrid is explaining the entire Wizarding World to Harry Potter, and we, the audience, are getting introduced to this world through our main character. This movie is literally narration, and it just really brought the movie down. I didn't think it opened very well. But funny enough, I've said that Spielberg usually stumbles across his endings, and this movie actually ended pretty well. Funny that the opening of this movie would be pretty bad, but the movie ends up being great in the end. And another issue I had, this might be a nitpick, but during a lot of the action scenes, while they are impressive and there are a lot of long takes, like what you saw in The Adventures of Tintin, I wish the camera wouldn't shake so much. It's like virtual shaking of the camera, and I just want it to stop for a second. Just be still to let us absorb all the action rather than it just shaking back and forth. So maybe that's a nitpick, but it just happens so frequently, and we've seen Spielberg direct great action scenes in live action beforehand, so that's a little disappointing. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I definitely want to see it again and in 3D, and because most of it is CG, I imagined it was rendered in 3D, so you don't have to worry about the whole was it shot in 3D or was it not. So I would say that this is worth seeing in your lifetime. It's a more accessible version of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Doesn't mean it's better, just means that people will have an easier time getting into this movie than they did Scott Pilgrim, because I'll admit, as good as Scott Pilgrim is, there are a few points where I watch that movie and go, I just don't get it. But overall, I do like the characters, I love the world that's created, it does move at a very good pace, and there is one point in this movie near the end that just put a big dumb smile on my face. I won't say what it is, but if you've been following this channel in the past month, you probably know what I'm talking about. So definitely see Ready Player One, and if you can, go see it in 3D. I know I'm planning to do that myself. And that's my review for Ready Player One. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.